As I'm sure many of you are aware, years ago a company was formed called Playtonic, consisting of several ex-Rare employees, and they proceeded to kickstart a game called Yooka-Laylee. The game was heavily inspired by Banjo-Kazooie, the beloved 3D platforming series from the N64 era. In a similar fashion, the player would control the duo of Yooka the chameleon and Laylee the bat, and explore open-world 3D settings, acquiring plenty of collectibles, and encountering zany new friends along the way. It all seemed perfect. You had several people who worked on these past Rare masterpieces, creating something inspired by arguably Rare's best IP. The Kickstarter was a smashing success, raking in over 2 million euros in funding, unlocking all sorts of stretch goals that made many believe that this would be effectively the Banjo 3E players had been waiting years for. Now, it was one of the original Kickstarter darlings, as I call them, and this title would proceed to undergo many of the same struggles we'd come to expect with these crowdfunded games. Demos emerging that weren't really meeting people's expectations, development hiccups resulting in delays, you know the drill, and when the game did finally release, it was met with a lot of negativity. Now, myself, I never really thought the original Yooka-Laylee was that bad. Like, I thought it was okay, definitely not the disaster many made it out to be. Even the review scores, they weren't great, but they weren't really horrible either. Once more, just pretty okay. But I think that's where some of this hype and build can backfire on you. You know, you tout how you've got people that worked on these classic franchises that people have all this nostalgia for. You're making a Banjo-Kazooie spiritual successor, something, again, fans have wanted for so long. You can hook them in with all that, but the problem then becomes living up to those expectations. When you say Banjo-Kazooie spiritual successor, then people are going to expect something that is on the same level as those classic games, and anything less is going to feel like a colossal failure to many. And in that regard, I definitely feel the game fell short. Again, like with most of these Kickstarter titles, it seems like the team may have bitten off a bit more than they could chew, tried to do something too big, and it resulted in a product that felt lacking in a lot of areas. Rushed even. And honestly, after the reception, I figured they'd probably actually move on to something different. But then, not too long ago, we'd learned the pair of Yooka and Laylee would be back in action once more, pretty soon after the release of the last game. But here's the thing. They still stuck with going this classic Rare route, but this time, they just went back a bit further. Yes, Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair is very much inspired by the old school Rare platformers like the Donkey Kong Country series. But unlike what they tried to do last time with Banjo-Kazooie, this outing, I feel, nails that vibe in about every way. The gameplay, the actual platforming feels very Donkey Kong-esque, with like doing the roll jumps for added distance, rope swinging, the awesome underwater sections. Game controls really well, which is important because, also like you would expect from the old Donkey Kong Country games, this title is pretty tough. You have to really use everything at your disposal wisely, and definitely take your time during some sections. That is, unless there's like a damn laser chasing you across the whole freaking level. In that case, you gotta go fast. But yeah, this one will test even seasoned platformer players. Visually, I think the game looks fantastic. All the footage in this video was captured from the Nintendo Switch version, by the way. Runs great in both docked and handheld mode. There's lots of bright colors that really pop, and there's a good contrast between the foreground and the background, which is sometimes a problem, at least for me, in these 2.5D games. Like, when everything's 3D but you're moving 2D, it can sometimes be tough to tell like where you're supposed to jump to in that. Wasn't a problem I had in this title at all. And while for most of the game you are progressing through these 2D levels, there's also a 3D overworld where you'll be doing some light platforming, light puzzle solving. Nothing too crazy, but it's just enough to kind of give you a bit of a break between levels. And if you are going to have something that lives up to the likes of Donkey Kong Country, Banjo-Kazooie, you better have some kick-ass music to go along with it. If we're talking about filling those shoes and your game's soundtrack is anything less than a 10 out of 10, you may as well not even try. Thankfully, you've got the talents of Grant Kirkhope, who worked on Banjo-Kazooie, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, and of course David Wise, who worked on just about every Donkey Kong game, Battletoads, tons of other stuff. The cream of the crop. This will definitely be a contender for Best Game Soundtrack of the Year, no question. Yeah, I'm going to have those tracks playing in the background for a while. As far as game progression, this is a collectathon. There are 4 main types of collectibles. There are tonics that have game-altering effects. You find them in the open world, and these effects can range from something simple like the huge head mode that just gives Yooka a big head, as well as stuff that will help you. Like there's one that gives you more invincibility time after you take a hit, or even being able to kill all the enemies on screen with the push of a single button. Only one use per level though for that one, of course. You have to also be mindful that the tonics that make the game easier will also reduce the amount of quills you can get per level, which quills are essentially the coins of the game. You'll get hundreds of them per level, but you'll also need hundreds, sometimes thousands of them to buy the tonics. Yes, after you find them, you still have to pay to unlock them. You can also spend them in the open world area to unlock cages that may contain items to help you get access to new areas. Yeah, you're gonna want a lot of these damn things, and you'll get a lot too. I like that there are these giant quills in each level they got like faces on them, and you interact with them in different ways to get mass amounts of quills. Some will like take off and you gotta follow the trail of quills. There are ones they have to like bounce on, etc. I like it because it's a really fun risk versus reward situation they put you in, as they will most likely force you to put yourself in dangerous situations or again rush through an area to keep up and get all the quills. And if you're like me, you just can't help but go for it every time, and you often may also end up paying the price for doing so. There are also 5 Twit coins in each level. These are like the more hidden collectible, and you give them to Towser to unlock his paywalls that will give you access to new areas of the game. These can be a pain to find, guys, let me tell you. Like, typically in platformers that do this, I'm a solid enough player. I'm not an epic gamer by any means, but I'm usually good enough that I'll just end up with enough of whatever the collectible is to keep progressing through the game, whenever I need them. But I regularly had to go back and get more in this game because, yeah, they can be quite tucked away or tricky to get to. Like, some may require you to jump on an enemy to get it, and if you screw it up, like you kill the enemy and don't get the coin, well, that's it. You're gonna have to kill yourself and lose quills to try again. Like I said, games definitely got that Donkey Kong level of difficulty. It's great. Also, many of the levels have modified versions. You can do stuff in the overworld like, freeze the level, flood the level, which will totally change it up. They basically become different levels, and when you play through these modified versions, you'll also be able to collect 5 more coins. And finally, there are the bees that make up your B-tallion. Simply put, you'll get a bee at the end of every level, and there are some scattered in the open world as well. But what do the bees do? Well, they help you in the aforementioned Impossible Lair. When you start the game, you actually start in the Impossible Lair. Most likely, you will also quickly die in the Impossible Lair, as it is very long and incredibly difficult, and you have to complete the entire thing in one run to beat the game. You can keep going back in even immediately, but it's going to be next to impossible. Hey, that's probably why they called the game that. At least in the beginning of the game. The bees, though, act as a sort of armor system in the Impossible Lair, giving you extra hits. So as you progress through the game acquiring more bees, you'll build up that safety net to help you get through the lair. I really like this whole deal, as it's cool to take early whacks at the lair to see just how far you can get. It tracks your percentage of completion, and really makes those bees feel like they're worth their weight in gold, as you may get close to the end and keep dying and be like, okay, I just need like 1 or 2 more and I'll have this for sure. Certainly there will be people who are able to beat it with less, those who will want to pull their hair out doing so, and surely we'll get like no damage runs of it before long. Actually, that's going to be cool to see, I bet, like for speed runs, but I'm confident that won't be the norm. If you're a mortal like me, you're going to want all the help you can get with the Impossible Lair, and you're going to want to collect those bees. Like I said, I thought the original Yooka-Laylee was just okay, but the Impossible Lair is genuinely great, in my opinion. From the moment Playtonic was created, fans of old school Rare games have been waiting for them to deliver that classic experience that really, hits them right in the nostalgia bone. And I believe that is exactly what they've done here with the Impossible Lair, and I eagerly await what they're going to do next. Seems like they're really hitting their stride now. If you're one of those people who are waiting for a new Donkey Kong game, like after Tropical Freeze, which I've said is my favorite Wii U game, wait no longer. This is it. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair in the comments. Are you currently playing the game, and how do you feel it stacks up against the original Yooka-Laylee? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter @JohnnyZakari. Join my Discord, ChiGuy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.